Spying is usually something that belongs to the movies, but in South Africa it certainly is beginning to impact the lives of ordinary citizens. The Guptas have allegedly taken it to another level. This is the Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I'm speaking to Bernard Hotz, the head of the Werksmans Business Crimes and Investigations Practice, to find out who is allowed to spy on whom. I mean, is it legal for me to look over my neighbour's fence?
Well,
it's
Bruce,
bad manners.
It's
certainly
very bad manners.
Yeah.
That might be all right, but let's look at what's actually happening here. It's astounding because you do have spying going on. And what's very concerning is if you look at what we're talking about here, we're talking about something called a movement control register. So when you travel and you go to the airport and you go through customs, they take note of where you're traveling. It's on their computer systems. They know exactly. They're not supposed to give that information out to anybody.
No.
Clearly not. But what troubles me is something different. What troubles me is why. Why are they so interested in the travel plans of those particular individuals? And it makes me worried when one delves into, for instance, what Bell Pottinger have been accused of doing and various other fake Twitter feeds have been doing. Is this something that we should be worried about? For instance, we will recall the allegations that were levelled at the erstwhile Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, whilst he was in London. How did that come about?
He was conspiring apparently to overthrow the state. A more loyal member of the ANC I've not met. I mean, there are lots of loyal members of the ANC, but there are very few more loyal and more deferential to the role of the president than Pravin Gordhan throughout both his tenures and his time at the local government ministry as well. These guys change jobs so often it's hard to keep track. You'll forgive me for this one, Bernard Hotz. But here we've got private individuals spying on private individuals using mechanisms we're led to believe of the state in order to do so. That's pretty frightening.
It's illegal, and there's legislation that prohibits it. In fact, there's legislation that prohibits the official, let's assume that's the official sitting behind the Register of Movement Control. There's legislation that says he cannot provide the information to anybody, and the same legislation says the person who receives that information unlawfully is also guilty of an offence and can be charged and sentenced to jail.
I mean, it's something as simple as, let's say, for example, in that wad of papers happens to be, because you suffer from short-term memory loss, your email password, and I managed to get into your emails. I'm breaking the law by doing that. I'm invading your privacy, am I not?
Absolutely. And once again,
that's an individual-on-individual thing. This is even excluding the state.
And the importance here, well, the importance why we talk about the state is because we're talking about issues of state security. National security. There's a reason why legislation is in place to protect such information. And if that information is being peddled out in the world at large, and then you have companies who are contracted to create fake news based upon people's travel plans, and that's just my concern. If that's my concern, I don't really know what's going on, but that really is a concern to me.
I mean, as a citizen, you've got to say, hold on a second, this information can be used against absolutely anybody. You are a high-profile litigator. You will take on powerful and influential people from time to time. You may accuse them of doing nasty things, and you may even succeed in court at getting them prosecuted. They may have powerful friends who may seek out to come and get you. And suddenly your private affairs, whatever they may be, whether it's going on a family holiday or whether it's going on a business trip, suddenly somebody can connect dots that are not there.
Absolutely. Bruce, it comes back to we should have zero tolerance for crime. This is crime. We have legislation in place. We have a judicial system in place. And if people have disputes with others, there's a forum to deal with it. You go to court, you lodge a complaint with the police, let the police investigate it. It's another story. But don't take the law into your own hands.
In an ideal world, one would simply go to one's local police station and say, I'd like to do a charge of espionage, please, against the state, and it would be the duty of the police officer there to put it through the system within the police, and it would eventually get ideally to the Hawks, and the Hawks would go off and investigate the national intelligence.
Absolutely.
That is the way it's supposed to work. That hasn't worked that way probably since the days of the Scorpions.
Yes, very much so. And the media is playing a crucial role here, because the age-old cliche is if you shoot in haste and you're going to repent at leisure, and in the age of technology, people are very quick to type on the keyboard. You cannot take that back. The metadata, the DNA does not lie. And what we're seeing now, courtesy of the media, and it's quite troubling. Yes, thank God we've got a free press at the moment. But this is something that our law enforcement should be dealing with. Yet they don't appear to be doing so. The media are the ones who are bringing the nation's attention to what is going on.
Here's a slightly trickier question. You and I certainly do celebrate, you might celebrate, I think you do, the leaks of 200,000 emails, the so-called Gupta emails, in the interests of transparency. But somebody has taken those private emails and put them into the public domain. Could that person not be accused in the same light, using the same legislation that we want to protect our rights, of breaching exactly that same regulation?
Bruce, a very important question. Ultimately, the court, the judge hearing the matter, has a discretion. Is it in the interest of justice for that particular judge to overlook a potential wrong that occurred in the interest of justice? Because clearly, you cannot misappropriate people's confidential information. But what we see coming out here is astounding. And it's in the interest of justice that it be brought out and that the law enforcement authorities actually investigate not the person who's leaked it, but rather those people who are implicated in the emails, because it has a detrimental effect on this country from a financial perspective, from every kind of perspective.
We've seen a greater privatization of everything in South Africa, from personal security to personal health to education, for example, and over the last decade and a half or so, a greater privatization of law enforcement. If you've got the money, you can hire a private investigator to create a docket which you deliver to a prosecutor. You even hire your own prosecutor to prosecute the case on your behalf. The corporate sector does it all the time with white-collar crime issues in order to get convictions, or at least to get settlements. What are the rights of South Africans? What stops Bernard Hotz from laying a charge and investigating that charge, or hiring somebody to investigate that charge on his behalf?
Must remember the notion of a private prosecution. There has to have been a case lodged with the police. The police have to have presented that case to the prosecution, and the prosecution have had to refuse to prosecute that case. Only then can you then institute a private prosecution. So you need a certificate. We call it in Latin a nolli prosecui certificate.
But that's assuming that the system is even functioning. And if the police are not taking that docket off to the National Prosecuting Authority, and the National Prosecuting Authority is in tray, I'm assuming, is fairly full, if it's not making its way from the bottom to the top of the tray, and there isn't an official rejection, then the hands of the private prosecutors are tied. Gerrie Nel, in this particular case, with AfriForum, where he's gone with the ambition perhaps of instilling some private prosecutions, could very well be that sort of individual.
It may very well reach a stage where applications may have to be brought against the prosecution to compel them to issue that certificate also.
So in the case, for example, of the president, who's got 2 charges, 783 counts of fraud outstanding. I mean, South Africa is an extraordinary place. I mean, have you ever heard of another place in the world where an individual has been convicted on corruption? Usually it's 2 people when it comes to corruption, isn't it? In my understanding.
Corruptor in a corruptee.
Exactly. And we saw Shabir Sheikh go to jail briefly for corruption. The other side of the equation has never been tested. And the National Prosecuting Authority to date has not refused to investigate. It's simply sat on the information. That's what you're talking about.
Correct. And that's precisely, if they do not issue that certificate, you can still go to court and compel them to do so.
Now, whose role is it to go to court and to compel the National Prosecuting Authority to either do its job, to test the evidence in court, or in this case, we'd probably prefer them not to refuse to prosecute, in which case you could instill a private prosecution? Whose job is it?
You have to have an interest. You have to have a legal interest in a case. You have to have what we call in Latin a locus standi. But it's fairly wide, as you've noticed in the latest emergence of various non-profit groups, of interest groups, taking matters to court, and that's very encouraging. It's very, very encouraging.
Okay, so an individual could say, I'm a taxpayer, I am concerned about corruption, therefore I see it as my duty as a tax-paying South African to prevent those taxes from being stolen. One of those aspects is in an outstanding court case, for example, and they could in an individual case, but would they have to fund it themselves in that case?
Yes, unfortunately, the funding is a problem. It's expensive. And as
Which
I say,
is why civil society organizations with public support are doing
playing
the
a
same.
crucial role. It's to hold people accountable. And the judiciary, as you've noticed, is still handing down excellent judgments. And we've got to hold on to that. We've got a very responsible judiciary at this moment in time. Yes, you get good judges, you get bad judges, just like you get good prosecutors, bad prosecutors. But when you look at the judgments that are being handed down by our courts, it makes one proud to be an attorney in this environment.
I mean, you weren't asked to talk about this, but I must ask you, because I'm sure you paid very close attention to Mogoeng, the Chief Justice, delivering his pronouncement on whether or not there should be a secret vote in Parliament on whether or not the President should keep his job, the vote of no confidence. Greater poetry I have not heard. I mean, from a legal perspective, it was masterful.
It was beautiful, and it took a lot of thought, and it took a lot of judicial courage to do so. And history's being written. The law reports are being written. This is an amazing time to practice law.
For people who think that the implementation of the law is simple, and so many people do think it is simple, they're sort of like, there's the law, there's the Constitution, apply it, the job is done. Why are you in so much admiration of what is the guy's job, which is to deliver a judgment?
Now, the age-old saying, if you look at the law reports, 100% of the people in those law reports thought they were going to win. Only 50% did. So it's uncharted waters, and it's professionally pleasing to see the courage that the judiciary are showing in these times.
We didn't mean to talk about that, but it was really, I mean, I do like to see his eyes light up. Bernard Hotz, the head of Werksmans Business Crimes Unit, joining us this evening on the Moneymakers as we talk about investigations. And of course, this is his field, and we need somebody to instigate an appeal, an application, to see whether or not those charges can be reinstated. Are the guys at AfriForum, who've got Harry Nell on board, the guys to do it? Probably. That's why you would think that he has gone there. But there'll be more ways for you to spy, to be spied on, and to avoid being spied on. We kind of lost track there a little bit, but I found that interesting, and I hope you did too. Till next time, bye-bye.